I know I asked her something. I couldn't tell you what it was. And then I know several days later, and this conversation I don't really remember very well, that she must have sat us down a couple days later. It was definitely the weekend, and told us he was dead.
Yeah, so my account of of that very day and the days that follow is could be even more vague and hazy. But I do recall that my father tried to wave at me, yelling my name, telling me to wave through the window of the school bus, which was something that he never really recalled he did otherwise.
An Nguyen's father, Can Nguyen, who lived through the Vietnam War, worked in the Navy Command Center at the Pentagon.
I noticed that my father didn't come home. I honestly thought that he would come back at some point. And it was a couple weeks later when the funeral came, when I saw my father's casket was pushed into the cremation chamber. That's when I knew that he's not going to come back. It took even a couple more years after that, even to thoroughly understand that he's not going to come back and try to live my life and develop my identity without my father.
Today, what did you want to say in that letter?
You know, it was cathartic. I want him to be proud. I want him to know that though his life was cut short, that he is leaving a lasting impact on the planet. He was my everything, you know? There is still a part of me that has this very sick, twisted hope that he's sitting somewhere on a beach in Mexico, drinking a beer and watching us from afar. That he got out safe, when in reality he was working above where the planes crashed. And
is it comforting on some level, even though you know it's not true and you've acknowledged that, to sort of fantasize it, maybe just that in your letter that you were angry, that you discovered anger? What were you angry about?
So the anger part was trying to understand that why my father died such in vain, and basically why the people that committed this heinous act would create such a tremendous impact that I will have to endure for the rest of my life, especially my childhood. It would never be the same. My favorite photo of us is the one taken on my 3rd birthday. You let me sit on your shoulders, and we laughed and looked so happy. I also like the picture of me wearing a military uniform that you bought for me from one of the stores inside the Pentagon. I am saddened and sometimes angry that I was forced to grow up without a father. I had learned about terrorism and the war on terror. It's really painful when I realize that I'm literally a victim of that situation.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
It struck you in a very personal way.
Definition is one thing, but the visceral reaction and basically living it is another.
I know for a lot of people it's just a word.
Exactly.
It's just a word, or it's something that you see on TV.
A lot of people will not understand what the word terrorism means until you're directly impacted by that, and that's something that it's even hard to describe. It's
even now.
Even now.
Lauren, legacy is really more than enough.
I wrote about closure in my letter, and I sit here and I listen to everyone, and I don't know what closure is anymore. Some days it's just impossible to get out of bed.
I can imagine. Have you forgiven? You mentioned forgiveness. Have you forgiven the people behind this?
Carrying hatred in your heart doesn't help anyone. It's exhausting. It's not worth it. And they held a lot of hatred for whatever their reasons were. And I feel bad for that. it breaks my heart that we all grew up without our parents for that.
Where do you stand on unforgiveness?
On forgiveness, it's for me, in the case of 9/11, forgiveness it's a complicated word.
Yeah.
For me, forgiveness would mean just liberate myself the agony and the angst of that the attacks forced me to endure
Yeah.
and understand and process it, and even just never mind try to articulate it to other people.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Like, how do you convey something like that?
Yeah.
So it's always going to make me wonder, like, what was the motivation that caused those people to have that kind of hatred?
How does the hatred become that intense? I wonder
Intense.
that too.
Mm-hmm.
Where does forgiveness sit with you, Lauren?
So, for me, there's two parts. One, like you said, anger is exhausting. It didn't take me very long to forgive them. Like, I couldn't be that angry. Also, there's that quote, if you can be anything, be kind. I'd like to think that I can be kind. I like to think that that's the most important thing, is to be kind to each other.
Dad, you are my hero. You are always in my heart. I am so proud to be your son. I promise to be a good student and study hard so that when I become a man, I will make you, up in heaven, happy and proud of me. Love, your son,
On you were 4.
Yeah, so my account of that very day and the days that follow is could be even more vague and hazy. But I do recall that my father tried to wave at me, yelling my name, telling me to wave through the window of the school bus, which was something that he never really recalled he did otherwise.
An Nguyen's father, Can Nguyen, who lived through the Vietnam War, worked in the Navy Command Center at the Pentagon.
I noticed that my father didn't come home. I honestly thought that he would come back at some point. And it was a couple weeks later when the funeral came. When I saw my father's casket was pushed into the cremation chamber, that's when I knew that he's not going to come back. It took even a couple more years after that, even to thoroughly understand that he's not going to come back and try to live my life